look like. Mary has put the slideshow in the chat if you guys wanted to kind of cruise along. And we're just gonna lay out the groundwork for the course. We're gonna demonstrate how you go through it, right? It's gonna be modular and self-paced. And then we're gonna give you an opportunity to kind of do a little bit of reflection at the end. And then there'll be an opportunity for you to begin to form your groups and start thinking about the work that is ahead of us. All right? Okay, here goes. All right, so just a few introductions. So my name's Eva Urban Hughes. I'm a Wayland High School Social Studies teacher. I am also a part-time instructional coach for the high school. I've worked with actually several of you, and I'm looking forward to working with this group. I will also point out some credentials. I've worked with the Highlander Institute in blended learning and was what's called a Fuse Fellow at Needham High School, and continue to work with people in that capacity at Wayland High School. I designed and implemented a completely online course. Then I designed and implemented a hybrid course at the high school. And now, along with all of you, we are designing and implementing a remote course. And I'd like to share some of my successes and struggles with you over the course of the next hour or so. Mary?
And I'm Mary Barber. I'm the technology specialist at the high school. And I started out at Happy Hollow and joined the high school with huge fears that the students would know more than I did. And of course they did. And, it took me a couple of years, but I finally embraced that and said, wow, what a great way to learn something. And that's kind of my tip. When we go into this remote learning or whatever the school committee decides for us, that when you do decide to use a tool, like your kids will help you through it. And like I would call a student, I'd text them and say, hey, I want to try the Zoom breakout room before I do it in class tomorrow. And they're like, sure, I'll do it with you. So just remember, you have that great resource sitting right in front of you, and they love it when they can help you out. And even in the middle of using a tool, say, wait a minute, how do you do this? And they'll say, oh, Mrs. Barber, just do that. So anyway, I'm really excited to work with you, and we will try a lot of different things and get you ready for September, whatever it looks like.
Yeah, we have some idea though. All right. Okay, so I just wanted to open up with some quick goals. What are the goals of this workshop? So we hope to create a frame of reference for thinking about remote learning as it's distinguished from face-to-face learning, and even to some extent to hybrid learning. Want to give you guys an opportunity to collaborate with your colleagues in building a remote curriculum. Like really, this is your chance to be able to work with them in order to put together best practices within the framework of this workshop. We would like to collaborate with you in sequencing curriculum and using tech tools. So Mary and I are going to be resources for you throughout this entire process. And then finally, and I wanted to be very clear about this, your final product will be a portion of your remote curriculum that you'll actually be using in the fall or throughout the year at some point, right? So this workshop was designed to frame and structure your curricular work, not to like create a whole bunch of additional work while you're doing your curricular work. I hope that makes sense, right? So as you're working through your curriculums and thinking about remote learning, this workshop is going to give you structure to that. And help you think through it. All right, Mary. You're muted.
You can tell we've been out of practice. All right, so I'm going to share my screen.
So I will stop sharing. Okay.
All right, so here's the course, which you've seen in a couple videos that I've sent out. And I just want to go through that. We're using plans in It's Learning. So as the student, you'll always see it here on your overview page, but you can always access the plans here. So in the plans, we have 7 modules, and even the first one, you've already done your reading, you've participated in the discussion, and we'll go through some more of that. And then today, at the end, Eva will kick off module 2, which is really basically defining what it is that you want your students to get out of your, whether it's your first module or if it's your first month or your first semester. You're going to define the time period, and then you're going to define what it is, the most important things in this remote or hybrid environment that we're going to be in. So whether you're using standards from the state, you create your own standards, you're using national standards, you're gonna help define what it is that you want your students to learn, and we'll help you with that. And then the next module is best practices. And in here, you're actually going to choose your LMS. So whether it's Google Classroom or It's Learning, we've put together a lot of resources here that just introduce you to the basic tools and beyond. Hopefully, most of you have participated in the EdTech team, which was fantastic for Google Classroom, and I've included all of their slideshows as well as video recordings and some other things. So this is just to get you through what are the best practices for using either one of those LMSs. And then the next module is tools. And here we will go through all the tools that are available to you as a teacher, as well as tools that are available to students. You'll have an assignment that you're going to go out and pick a tool that you haven't really used before. You're going to teach yourself how to use it, create an assignment for your students, or create a material that you're going to give to your students, and then you're going to record how to use the tool so that we can all share and learn from each other. And then we get to sequencing, which is module 5, and that is about learning paths and hyperdocs. How do we put this information together so that our students can access it, and what's a good pace, what are some good assessments and some activities for the students to do. And then the final, this is the thick of it, module 6, which is prep time. This is when you're going to be working with your cohort, and you're going to really start defining and putting materials together. You've chosen your LMS, you know what technology tools you can do, you know how to use sequencing, and this is just work time. And then even I will be available. We've set up appointment calendars that we think it would make it easier if you could see when we're available, but we're also available in email or text. Just say, hey, can you meet with us? We've set aside a huge chunk of time, so you just let us know and we're there for you. We can join in on a Zoom meeting with you or a Google Meet meeting with you, or we can do a one-on-one. And then the last thing is a reflection, and this is where you'll just tell us how you thought the course went, and you'll turn in your final product, which is basically either your Google Classroom or your It's Learning to get you started in September. Okay, you're muted now, Eva.
Thank you, Mary. Okay. And am I screen sharing?
You are.
Excellent. You can see where we are. All right. Okay. So let me get back to where we were. This is what I was looking for. Excellent. Okay. Thank you, Mary.
Oh, wait a minute. I did forget to talk about downloading the Hybrid Teacher Survival Guide.
Sure.
So it's in It's Learning. The Hybrid Teacher Survival Guide, if any one of you have taken the EdTech teacher courses this summer, Emma Pass, which is one of the instructors, she wrote a book this summer, and she, you don't have to pay for it. She has asked that we follow a link, and the link is, I'm going to put it in the chat in just a minute. It's also in It's Learning, so as a resource. So we'd love you to download it, because we're going to be referring to it throughout the class, and with 100% permission from Emma. So I'll put that in the chat right now.
Thanks, Mary. Okay. No, what a great resource, and what a great book. I've really found quite a bit that I can hang on to. And this is actually a quote from The Hybrid Teacher, and that is, the time I get to plan, grade, and communicate with individual students while they're learning remotely is a gift that I didn't realize was possible in education. I treasure the relationships I have with my students and of my colleagues. And this really resonated with me because as we were going through in remote learning in the spring, I was trying to, kind of focus on the positive, like what's positive about this experience. And what I realized was that the relationships that I had with students and also with my colleagues were really reinforced during that time. And so we're really going to kind of focus as we begin to dive into remote learning, look at different ways that we can rebuild those relationships, not just with colleagues, but with our students in particular, so that we can establish, I think, a firm ground for learning. All right, so just quickly, a hybrid model. And these are some of the reflections of Emma Pass and of myself as I've been thinking about a hybrid model of remote learning, or remote learning completely. Requires a more comprehensive understanding of tools and technology that can help facilitate online learning, discussions, assessment, and community. So I think that's a big part of why I think a lot of people join, right? Want to get a better handle on the tools and technology in order to be able to facilitate this well. It takes a lot of thoughtful planning. And you have to kind of distinguish between good remote teaching versus face-to-face teaching, and be very thoughtful about how you implement them differently. I think it's more difficult to hold students accountable for doing their work when they're online, and this requires teachers to stay engaged and current on grading, so that they'll notice when a student is disengaged. This is certainly not only something I noticed when I was teaching in the spring, but I'm sure all of you did too, right? That is, you have to continue to build on feedback and give students constant feedback, otherwise they think that their work is meaningless and they disengage. That requires creativity in adapting lessons and activities that have been designed for a traditional classroom environment. So what you would ordinarily do in the classroom does not necessarily translate directly into what you're doing in remote learning, but it can, right? With some thoughtful planning, you can use some of the same materials. But again, it's a process. And it also requires greater communication and partnerships, right? With parents as well as learning coaches and others in the high school model, for example, special education, the academic center, administrators. I mean, there's a constant collaboration in order to keep those students engaged and netted. And you have to create these partnerships with your colleagues and with parents and other learning coaches so that students don't fall through the cracks. So what I wish I knew before I started a hybrid model. One, staying organized in how you post your work and communicate with your students is key to their academic success. So consistency, all students know where to go and what to do and how to navigate a learning management system. Cohesive systems, right? Consistent systems amongst classes and colleagues really, really helps students. And that's something that's really was driven home to me in the spring. The more consistent I was with my colleagues in the product that we were putting out there, in the way that we were putting it out, it was very helpful to students in being able to be successful. Students and parents have communication preferences. You should ask, how would you like them, right, to communicate with you? This could be texting, email, Google Classroom. They're more likely to respond if you ask them, right? How do you want us to communicate? And then what I also found is the amount of time available to complete a task is the amount of time it's going to take, right? So when we were working on the remote model initially in the spring, if I gave myself an entire day to plan a lesson, that's how long it would take, right? However, if I gave myself an hour, then it would take maybe just a little bit more than that, right? So use timers to help you manage your time and teach students to do the same. In fact, I put up a Edpuzzle video and resources to use with students that you might find useful, that kind of drills this point home. And that is, you need to be able to organize your time and to do that efficiently, and that gives you various strategies to be able to do that. And then I want to just remind all of you, and I think you know this, but students are adaptable and they are resilient. Don't underestimate them. I'm finding that for the most part, students were adapted to the remote environment, accepted it as a circumstance that they were in, or under the circumstances that they were in, and overall kind of rolled with it, right? And I would say the same for us. And that is that we're adaptable and that we're resilient. And don't underestimate yourself in this endeavor. I think it's something we can do. And I think it's also something that we can do well based on what I've kind of seen. And so with that introduction, I wanted to kind of jump back to the discussion post and also to the Jennifer Gonzalez post from the Cult of Pedagogy. For those of you that don't know her, she is just a wonderful blogger and writer about all things education. And what I wanted to do, and Mary, if you wouldn't mind putting us into just short breakout groups, is two things. The first is I wanted to stop and reflect. So here, right, is the Jamboard. I can put this into the chat here in a second. And what this is actually a new feature from Google. And in what ways has teaching and learning been transformed in your class because of remote learning and technology? So if you go to the Jamboard, and let me just kind of go there now. You'll have an opportunity, just a few minutes, and you can do this now if you've got my slideshow open. And if you don't, then I will
I'll put it in.
Did you just put it in? Fabulous.
I will. I'll put it in right now.
All right. There's two Jamboards, right? One is in what ways has teaching and learning been transformed or transformed your class because of remote learning? And then the second one, in creating a remote learning classroom, how have you leveraged digital tools, right? What has been effective and what hasn't been effective? And the way that you write on a Jamboard is you put up these little sticky notes, right? So here's a sticky note, and I'd be like, oh, you know, I found the LMS to be very useful, right? And then I can save. And then I grab this and I put a little sticky note up there. You guys see how that works? They're kind of fun. Yeah, this reminds me of an older technology that we'd use. And in what ways has teaching and learning been transformed in your class because of remote learning? If you guys could just take a minute to put a sticky note, and here are the sticky notes right here, up, we'll get an opportunity to talk about them in like 2 or 3 minutes. All right. And once you've had an opportunity to fill that out, you can join a breakout room.
Are you guys not in a breakout room? Did you?
We didn't join a breakout room yet just because we're working on the sticky note.
Got it.
But we have an invitation.
Okay.
All right. Well, welcome back, everybody. I hope you had an opportunity to talk a little bit about what was useful. I appreciated that little icon of Charlie Brown there, being like, oh, right. I think that most of us felt that way, right? Most of us felt that way jumping in because it was so overwhelming. But it's my hope, right, that we are able to work through some of that anxiety in order to be able to put together a good remote learning product. All right. And so with that, it's 10:52, and so I'm going to try to finish by 11 o'clock and stick to the hour. So what I'd like to do is, and let me go back to this, is finish up here. All right. And so we've managed to discuss some of these. And now what I'd like us to do is to spend a minute looking at module 2 and kind of the defining your goalposts. And so let me go to It's Learning. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, we can, Eva.
All right, terrific. So let me go to module 2 and kind of show you how to work your way through that. So here is defining your goalposts. Let me just go straight to the plans here. So when I activate this, which is going to be right after this class, there's going to be essentially 2 lessons that you're going to be working through. The first one, I strongly recommend. The goal of this particular workshop is for you guys to work together in cohorts through the material in order to build your remote learning curriculum. And so the first lesson here is about effective group work. And in particular, what I'm going to ask you to do, and what I always do is put like a little video, and Mary does this as well, explaining the directions. But you take like a personality, what's called the personality compass test, and it will put you on a point of the compass. And then when you start working with your group, I would encourage you to tell them what point of the compass you kind of land on so that you can best strategize based on your strengths, how to divide up work and how to work with one another. And this very simple, and I recommend using this with students as well, this very simple test and the ability to use a common language in how we work with one another, that is the points of the compass, is very useful in being able to efficiently run groups, right? And then I also put in a piece about overcoming the 5 dysfunctions of a team, which is an excellent book if you've got, because I know you guys have tons of time to be reading those kinds of things. But I put in just a graphic organizer showing you what that looks like. So when you're working with your teams to be able to work efficiently. So that would be the first lesson, but this is really kind of getting into the meat of what this course is going to be doing, and that is creating some structure for you to be able to put together your remote curriculum. And so this first assignment here is finding, right, prerequisite content standards. And it's like Mary said, like, and then you'll see some directions here from me. We're going to go 20,000 feet up in the air first. And I actually was hearing this in some of the breakout groups that I was in. And that is something that was very useful in approaching remote learning was flying up in the air 20,000 feet and looking down and asking yourself some questions about what is most essential, right, in my course. And in particular, what are the topics that are the most essential? What are the guiding themes of the course that we're going to build the course around, and what are some of the content standards that are necessary in order to effectively teach the skills, the prerequisite skills and power standards of the course. And so what I've done is, for this particular module, I have, and let me go back to my plans here, giving you some links to like the Department of Education and Common Core standards and that kind of a thing. However, for every content area, this is going to be a little different. So let me just give you an example. And here's ultimately the assignment. So you'll go through and read Marie Kondo, the curriculum, and then I've created a summary for you to take a look at. But eventually what I'd like you to do is in teacher teams is to choose a template. I've attached one, or you can create one of your own. And I want you to think about these large questions about themes, content standards, and a general organization of your course. So for example, I'm in high school social studies, and our department head has already put out a template that asks us to think broadly about essential questions, broadly about themes that we're going to pattern our entire course around before we actually get into the development of topics and curriculum, right? And I think this is a critical step before we start compiling our curriculum, is to think broadly about how we're going to organize ourselves, because there has to be some, and I don't want to use the word culling, but definitely some refining of our curriculum and further depth as opposed to breadth in a remote world, because you simply can't cover it all, and nor do you necessarily want to, right? And so I've created some examples of templates that you can use, or you can use a template, you know, of your choice. And first start thinking about what these like broad content standards and themes may be. And then that's what you guys are going to turn in by group at the end of module 2, right? Is a template of, okay, so this is our content area. Here are our themes. Here are our standards that we want to, our content standards, and as well as our skill standards that we want to abide by. And this is going to be sort of like the Bible of the course. And that way we can now begin to dive a little bit deeper into other elements, right, of developing the curriculum, not the least of which is like choosing an LMS, amongst other things. And so, are there any questions about that? Are there any questions? Defining your goalposts? No? Let me just ask you for a thumbs up or a thumbs down real quickly. Do you have to use the Department of Education standards for this particular part or module? Thumbs up or thumbs down? You could, right? Do you have to? No, right? So it depends on your content area. Like where you want to define your goalposts. I think it's going to be different for every content area. As I just described, right, at the high school level in social studies, we've got a department head that's asking us to fill out something very different. So how you define your goalposts is up to you, but I think it's really important that there's some consistency between teachers, that your goalposts are all the same. Are there any questions about module 2? Who's excited to get started?
Eva,
Mary.
would you take a few minutes again to, and Fred, I'm sorry, I'll get back to you. We'll get to you in just a minute. Can you just reiterate that this is basically, we switched gears halfway through, and because when we mapped it out, we said people were going to hate us because we would ruin the rest of your summer. So we've tried to make this 100% go at your own pace. And our intention is, I think by Friday, we'll have all the rest of the modules up. 3 will probably be up tomorrow. 4 will probably be by Thursday, and then you'll just be able to go at your own pace and break off in your groups and really focus and spend a lot of time. So, but with that said, since we won't be having any more of these group meetings, you just have to reach out to us and we'll set up our own individual meetings and ask us as many questions. It feels kind of weird that we won't be seeing you face to face, but we wanted to give you that flexibility so that you can do your module at, midnight and play all day or whatever you choose.
And then to Mary's point, we also wanted to give you the flexibility to get together in your teacher teams, right? To be able to work at your schedule. And again, the goal of this workshop is not to add more layers of work, but rather to structure the work that you are going to do on your curriculum over the course of the next couple of weeks. I'll just kind of add that if you were granted summer work days, this would be the ideal opportunity to use those summer work days. Perry Graham said that it's a good coupling, right? That is, use your summer work days and then also use this workshop to structure and frame them. Fred, did you have a question?
I'm going to talk to Mary after the Zoom.
I have a question. A question for clarification, Eva. So are we working on module 2 as individuals before we actually meet as a team?
So I would recommend that you you meet with your team and work on module 2 together.
Okay, so work through that module together.
Yeah. Yeah, right, because you want to, particularly in this particular module, right, defining your goalposts, you want to work with your teacher team to make sure that you're
Okay,
all consistent on what you want to do.
okay.
Eva, if
It's
you're,
similar to, go ahead, sorry,
if
go
you're
ahead.
the only teacher on a particular course, can you
Yeah.
not have a team?
Yeah,
Okay.
no, it's true. There are a couple of departments of one.
But Jen, you may want to reach out to your.
I have. I
Yeah,
have.
no,
Yeah.
not to join the class, but like when you're pulling things together, you might just say, hey, I was thinking of doing it this way, and I have the resources if you want to weigh in or whatever. So, and reach out to us. We can help you we'll be part of your team.
Yeah, I was what I was anticipating as well.
And I
Okay.
was going to mention one thing about the teams again, is when you get to module 4 and you're going through the tools, I highly suggest that everybody on the team try a different tool. Okay, so, and I'm also, and you'll get all this in a recording, but I also highly recommend that you don't fall back on the one that you used all spring and that you feel really comfortable with. Like, really push yourself in this time that we have to try something different. All right, and somebody else will be trying something different, and then together as a group you can say, never use that tool, or I found it really helpful.
All right, so it's 11:02, and I want to respect everybody's time. So thanks so much for joining us this morning. There is a chat function or private chat function in the bottom. So what I would like you to do is, if you see members, right, of your team on the screen right now, is reach out to them and say, okay, so we're on a team. When do you think would be a good time that we could meet to kind of tackle module 2 and start working through some of those summer work days? So I wanted to give you a moment to do that, okay? All right, I'm going to model this by doing
Okay.
it.
And I'm going to stop
You
recording.
put more than one person into the private chat, because,
Yes.
or is there a way to do that? How does one do that?
Yeah, how does one do that, Mary?
Let me try. I'm going to try it. I've never done it. No, I guess you can't.
I
was
don't
wondering-
see the private chat. All I see is chat. Should I
Oh,
have a,
yeah. So if you click on the little down arrow, you can choose who you want to speak with.
It's like passing notes in class. It's private. It's kind of fun, right? So for example, here, I'm gonna go ahead and send one.
Mary, you said that the district has bought Zoom for everybody. Do we need anything special to log in and take advantage of that? Or is it just automatically put in with our email?
No, you're going to, with your new email, Leisha is putting everybody into the new Zoom account, and you're going to get an email from Zoom. And it says,
Okay.
welcome to the new Zoom. And then there's some great features. I don't know if anyone took advantage of the Zoom Academy last week, but the polling and the breakout rooms, which we knew before, but it's just, I'm so thankful that the district did it, because I think that we'll be able to do a lot in this remote learning. The other thing I wanted to mention, if you have been taking the PD, we added some from EdTech Teacher. So there's 2 tomorrow and 2 next Tuesday. And so I'd highly recommend looking at that. And you just go register on our PD site. And the new sessions are Pear Deck, Screencastify, Seesaw, Jamboard. And also there
Mary, can
is,
you put that into the chat for us?
yep.
Okay.
And also there is, I don't know, there's Prepared to Learn, a virtual PD by Pear Deck, Screencastify, Book Creator, and Google. That's today and tomorrow. And you can go in and register and then just pick a session that you want. Like, I don't think anyone has the time to spend all day attending these, but let's say you wanted to do something on Screencastify. So I'll put the link, and then you can just go there and register.
Thank you. All right. All right, so now is the time to put your teams together, and now is the time to begin to kind of coordinate how you're going to spend your time or burn through your summer work days or complete this workshop. We would like to have the workshop completed for everybody by August 26th, which is the day before school starts. There have been some updates. I don't know if you guys are aware, but the MTA has negotiated 10 professional development days for school districts to use, and reduce the number of days that students have to come to school to 170 from 180. How the district is going to be distributing those professional development days, I'm not sure. I think that that's actually in the plans for the school committee to decide either today. Is that right, Mary? Or in the coming days. They're currently right now trying to decide what model we're opening up with. What's sort of on the table is opening up all remote for those of you that have been following it for grades 4 through 12 and then transitioning into a hybrid model. The details of that are all forthcoming. All right. Okay. And it's 11:06 and I've kept you too long. Mary has put up in the chat any additional PD that you might want to sign up for. I am looking forward to working with every single one of you over the course of the next few weeks and supporting you in what I think is really, I mean, between us, I think this is really exciting. And as big as this upheaval was, I think that public education is in this moment of kind of redefining itself. And so despite the circumstances, like I'm trying to embrace the excitement of this. And the newness of this and the possibilities of this. And so with that, I bid you adieu. All right. Have a good day, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Don't hesitate to call.